There's so many benefits, you say, of working like this. It really appears to be the new way, the new normal for us, right? So
Absolutely.
how do managers get ready for that? What are some strategies you can offer them?
Yeah, funnily enough, the recommendations that we're seeing that are most effective are not these ideas that are alien to us. It's just we need to be aware of them and be mindful of them. So don't be a controlling boss. And what I mean by that is it's very easy for well-meaning managers to go from being a good boss who's keeping in touch to somebody who's micromanaging and who's incessantly trying to keep track of what's happening of what your employees are doing. So a simple example is, let's say, remote work, pre-installation of a remote work arrangement, employees are in the office, managers feel like, okay, I don't need to see what Tim and Jane are doing. They're going to get their job done. I'll just keep taps on them every now and again. I'll just, knock on the door and see how they're doing. But now that they're out of the office and some of them are working from home a couple of days of the week, all of a sudden they feel like I got to keep sending emails or keep asking them for daily updates or, every 2 hours check in to see if they're working because, either my bosses think that they're slacking off or employees think they're slacking off. So a well-intentioned manager can very easily go from being a good manager to a micromanager in the flip of a sec, like in the toss of a coin, because all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I need to check on what they're doing, and you're gonna keep sending emails and you're gonna keep calling them. So have the confidence that your employees who are productive in the office, more likely than not, are going to be very productive, when they're outside the office. But at the same time, the best way to make sure that they're keeping track and reaching their objectives is doing just that. Set your objectives very early. Say that, okay, today or this week, these are our goals. We need to hit XYZ targets. And as long as you're setting these targets and you're asking employees to, make sure that they're hitting these targets, let them figure out how they go and get it done. Of course, this is not something that every organization can do, but to the extent that you can give them the freedom to set their own schedules and they're not encumbered by having to, meet a client deadline at exactly a certain time in a day. Like if you have clients who are working in different areas or in different time zones, that's a different thing altogether. But once you set expectations and you set goals, let your employees, reach those objectives in any which way they can, and start figuring out what are ways that we can reach these objectives faster, and keep revising those objectives. Just because you set it once doesn't mean that has to be the target through and out, right? You can keep revising those targets. Discuss with your employees, hey, did this work for you? Do we need to revise, whether we need to extend our timeline for this, or, if we're hitting our objectives much faster, can we think about doing things differently? So keep having those conversations with your employees. That way, they're part of the conversation of setting their own objectives, which will, invigorate them, which is kind of like the work-related flexibility. But at the same time, you're putting that confidence in them, which will kind of make them feel like they need to reciprocate that trust that you're building, that you have in them, right? Um, and probably most importantly, just be flexible. And by flexible, I mean be available to your employees. If they're working 2 3 days away from the central office, then be available to them to ask questions about, hey, can I move this day to, like, if I'm working from home on Mondays, can next week I need to make it Thursday? Sure, Thursday is fine by me. See that you can be that flexible boss, and sometimes it might not work out. It's not like that works out every single week, but having that flexibility, knowing that you have a boss who's willing to listen to your challenges and is understanding of your challenges and can accommodate them, that's a huge benefit. So even those weeks where you're unable to accommodate them, more likely than not, employees will be like, all right, I can't get everything. So, maybe this week, there's certain restrictions that I can't, be as flexible. And that's okay. They'll latch onto that and they'll be appreciative of the times that they do get to work flexibly. So it's these simple things that managers just need to keep, be mindful of. Yeah.
Yeah, a really strong focus on the unique needs of individuals, I'm hearing you say.
Oh, absolutely. I think it's easy for managers to forget the fact that employees are unique individuals. So if you're away from the office, the assumption is that, oh, anybody who's working remotely has the exact same challenges, but that's not necessarily true. We have different backgrounds, different, family sizes, different home sizes. So not everybody who's working remotely or, for the few days that they are away from the office has a separate home office, with a wall where they're keeping their kids out of bay. It's usually a parent sitting next to the dining table with their kids playing in the playroom and, all, chaos ensuing all around them. So you need to be mindful of these different challenges that your different employees have, and having that sense of the knowledge that, okay, there are all these different sets of challenges that employees might be experiencing, and keeping that at the back of your mind so you can target, unique challenges as and when they come up will really make you a better boss. It'll allow employees to feel like you are empathetic and that the manager really understands the different kinds of challenges that they're experiencing. It builds that trust with the manager. So it's important that, it's not a one size fits all when it comes to remote work for employees, and different employees have different challenges. They might have elderly care that they need to focus on, or young child care that they need to focus on. Some employees just simply, live 2 hours away and they don't want to commute every day, which, as we know, there's research to suggest that more time spent in commute leads to really bad outcomes at work. So maybe that one day a week where they get the reprieve is totally worth it and they might appreciate it. So just keeping that in mind is absolutely critical.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So we're talking about managing the upsides as well as managing the downsides. What additional strategies might you suggest managers think about here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've kind of talked about how do you enhance or really focus on flexibility for employees, but at the same time, you kind of want to play down or minimize the downsides as much as possible. And this ties into the idea of being a micromanager a little bit, or avoiding a micromanaging style, but having frequent communication. But what kind of communication? Information sharing is probably the most important. So if you remember, we were talking about professional isolation where employees feel like they're out of the information network. So getting communications from your manager frequently, but about information on the team or what's happening with the organization, is a key way that you can help build that sense of inclusion. So that way, even if employees are, away from the office 1 or 2 days a week, they still know what's happening in the organization. So including everybody who needs to be on particular communications, or even if you had a conversation with folks who are in the office, having a quick email, just drafting a quick email saying that, hey, we just discussed this. I wanted to keep you in the loop. Here you go. And a quick summary email, just letting everybody know what's happening, is a good way of letting employees stay connected to the organization and to the unit, even when they're working away for a couple of days of the week. And, encourage employees, celebrate your victories, let them know that, they're doing a good job, regardless of whether they're in the office or away from the office. I think another key thing that managers can do is help employees really balance that, the boundaries between work and life. So sometimes employees, simply by given the opportunity to work from home, will work way too hard. And that sounds like a good thing from an organization standpoint, but I mean, way more hours than they're required to. They get burned out really quick. They feel like they always need to be connected. So even if they get an email after work hours, an employee might feel like, oh, wait, I got the chance to work from home. I need to make myself available at all hours. And that's not the case if you were in the office. After you leave the office, you're pretty much like disconnected. But for folks who are working from home, they might feel, obligated to be always connected. So emphasizing the need for boundary management, and this is something that I struggle with, and my department chair really told me that you need to set boundaries. Like, you cannot keep working yourself to the bone, because then we want you here for the next 40 years and we don't want you to get burned out in 2 years, right? So it's really important that you understand that, there is work and there's life and there are boundaries, and you should be able to help maintain those boundaries. And then to help that sense of social connection, a good idea could be, and I've read some organizations doing this, is they have planned weekly meetings, maybe bi-weekly. Some teams meet every week, some teams meet every day, depending on what works for the team. Having planned interactions is important so that everybody gets that sense of connection and community. And some teams even do a first 10-minute complete informal where they're just personal updates, right? Before we get down to business for today's discussion, tell me what's going on in your life. So people quickly talk about celebrations, and that tends to happen in meetings. So you're just replicating that, but now in a virtual environment. So you're just letting people, let them know what's happening in their personal lives, any celebrations, and then get to discussing, the matters at hand. So I think that allows for even more sense of community, even if you're out of the office, and some folks are working from home and some folks are working in the office. That way you're having those social interactions. It's not the exact same thing as being in the office altogether, but at least you're building that sense of community. And I think managers can do a really good job of identifying ways that different employees can work together. So if they see that there's common ground that allows employees to work on a project together, and putting them together, regardless of where they're working from, would really help build that sense of community and collaboration within the team. So these are like the big, ideas. They're not completely unheard of. It's just being mindful of them, bringing them to the forefront and keep thinking about it on a consistent manner. I think managers can practice things. I mean, managers are humans. We're not thinking about they're not superhuman, right? So as humans, we focus on one thing for a little bit and then it becomes normal and then we tend to lose track of it. So being mindful of it, so it's always at the back of your mind and you keep thinking of it, remind yourself that, okay, wait, is everybody okay? How are folks doing? Are folks in the office doing okay? Are folks at home doing okay? You know, is there a day of the week where you require everybody to be in the office so that you do have that sense of community? Because you might have group members who some of them are working from home on Mondays and others are working from home on Thursdays, right? So when do we bring everybody back into the office for that one day a week? And you could try and think about strategies like that. It's just listening, paying attention, put your ear to the ground, see what's happening with your employees, be empathetic, understand that people have challenges and that we're coming off this really stressful 1 year of crazy COVID stuff. It's unprecedented, and there are going to be some of those trickle over effects. So you need to make sure that even as we return to quote unquote normal, the new normal is going to be something we still need adjusting to. So be empathetic, understand that some people have had traumatic experiences. Some people just spent the pandemic sitting at home and enjoying themselves. But you're going to have the whole range of experiences. So bringing people together and letting them understand that we're a unit, we're meant to work together, and we're going to try and come together as a team, and really embracing that team spirit and leading from that perspective is quite important as we transition to a hybrid environment.
Yeah. That's a great segue as we think about we're managing individuals and balancing the unique needs of individuals as well as the work and those we serve. And then we have to think about how do we scale that up so that we manage teams, groups of people, and ensure that they're interacting in a way that's going to help achieve the goals that you have for your group. What additional ideas do you have as you think about managing teams and displaying these values?
I think the most important thing, and it sounds simple enough, but the key element that makes teams work is trust. And I think what leaders can do is in addition to building individualized relationships with their employees. So getting to know your employees is one aspect, and understanding their unique challenges and their individual challenges is one thing, but kind of building that sense of community and that trust, not just with each member, but also among members, is absolutely important. And once you build that trust where employees feel like, all right, my boss has my back regardless of XYZ circumstance, then they feel more psychologically connected to the unit. They feel more connected to the organization. They feel like they can take risks in terms of getting the work done, even when they traditionally might not feel that way. Employees will typically reciprocate a lot stronger in through hard work, more hours, which again might necessarily be a good thing. It's not bad for a company to have employees working longer hours, but it could link to long-term, consequences. So, but employees will really feel like they need to give back to a manager or to an organization that really builds that sense of trust and has that sense of faith in their employees that they're going to get the job done. So largely speaking, you would just want to take steps that help foster that sense of trust that allows employees to feel psychologically safe, that even if I was to choose not to work remotely on XYZ days per week, that it's not going to affect my promotion outcomes, it's not going to affect my ability to connect with my team members, it's not going to affect my performance, and that my team knows that, and my manager knows that, and my company knows that. You just want to build that sense of trust in your employees that allows them to really exercise that sense of freedom when they are working from home, because the whole benefit of working from home is the psychological freedom that, yes, I'm working for this team, but I have more flexibility in the way I do this work. And I think it's key that organizations don't lose sight of employees when they're working from home. It's not like they are not connected to the company. It's just that they have this new sense of freedom that comes from the boundaries that they're in, which is their home more often than not, right? So how do you really allow your employees to exercise that sense of freedom while still maintaining that connection to the company and their units? That's what's key. And I think what we've discussed so far allows managers to really hone in on some of those ideas.
Thank you, AJ. I heard wonderful themes of really guiding principles, being flexible, being empathetic, as we really find ways to include others in fair and equitable ways, but really uniquely suited to the individuals themselves. So Thank you so much for sharing some of your research, some of your insights on this topic as we work together in brand new ways and learn and grow together as a team in this hybrid world.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure, and thank you for having me.